Hey Marco, just wanted to make a video to serve as a operation guide and serve as a little demo as well for your Luke V2 that I finished up. First I want to start with the outside, just show you everything I did, and then we'll move on to the inside. Right here is a little blade plug that I made. If you've seen my last video, it's actually this same part, but obviously it looks a little different, shorter blade part that's with it, and this is sticking out the top a little bit. Tried to imitate the way that the Luke V2 saber looks a little bit with that. So that's your blade plug. The whole outside has been weathered with some aluminum black. I don't know if it'll pick up very well, but this is not how it came from the custom saber shop. All these aluminum pieces, they're darkened a little bit. Look like they're weathered, obviously, and that's all the way down. Obviously everything except for the Graflex clamp, because that's still shiny, but everything else has been weathered with some aluminum black. Put gaffer's tape on the neck to just try to imitate that Luke V2 a little bit, all the little details about it. Going on down, all that I did with this was took this little bar and I reversed it. Usually it looks like this, to where it's just flat, but I noticed that on the Luke V2 this little chunk is kind of extracted, and that's all that's there. So instead of doing that, I just flipped it around, just to imitate it a little bit more. We've got a Wanawanga clamp card. I did kind of darken it a little bit. It comes a little bit more of a brighter green, so I tried to make it look a little bit weathered to match the rest of the saber. Moving on down, there's both of these parts are actually from Solo's Hold, and both of which are actually also weathered with aluminum black. There's a steel and aluminum version. Obviously I got the aluminum one so that I can do that with these. I also added this D-ring down here. And then at the bottom, a cool little detail that the custom saber shop has is you can get different like pommel pieces, pommel inserts to go in the pommels, and this one I got because it imitates the window behind Emperor Palpatine during Luke and Vader's duel. So I thought that was really cool. I know KR Saber's Luke V2 a while back kind of had the same deal going on, so I wanted to do the same thing, and I think it looks really cool. So yeah, and then the whole paint job that I did with this, I used Trooper Trent's stencil. I actually used the one that's meant for the Corbanth Luke V2. And obviously this isn't a Corbanth Luke V2, this is a Luke V2 that I kind of put together using MHS parts. So I applied those stencils as best as I could, and it actually came out pretty good. There's not really any parts where you can like obviously see that, oh, that looks a little off. It all came out pretty cool. It's definitely really satisfying using those stencils. Can't achieve the same kind of weathering without it. So I was really happy with how that turned out. And yeah, I think that's it for the outside. I'll move on into the inside. Up top we have your stock V3 NPXL connector with onboard LEDs. And to get to the chassis, this hilt comes apart in several different spots. So the bottom section here will give you access to the crystal chamber with a real quartz crystal. You can see your 28mm Smuggler's Outpost speaker, and it actually gives you access to the SD card as well. I can't get through this with my fingers, so you do have to have like a little pair of tweezers. With, obviously with the battery taken out, you can pop it with your finger and then kind of gently take it out with some tweezers, and you can access that if you ever want to add some sound fonts and stuff like that. So that's the bottom half. Now, when unscrewing these different pieces, you don't want to twist this clamp card too much. The way that it's clocked is in line with the buttons here that the wires connect to it and then down into the chassis, so you don't want to be twisting that at all. So you want to try to just hold it tight and only twist the different hilt pieces. So this top section gives you access to your removable battery, which is on the other side right here. Spring side is your negative, and up top we have a stock, I think it's a 10-pin connector if I'm not mistaken. And what that does is it creates a wireless connection between this portion of the chassis and the Neopixel connector. And if I can get to see, yeah, you see the pins down in there. So these pins essentially are the same kind of connection from the hilt to the blade, but it allows you to have different chassis segments. So those pins connect with this plate on here. So with all the pieces off, I'll go ahead and pop a battery in. Let's see, here we go. I'll be sending, or you actually purchased one of these and I just had you ship it to yourself. It's an 18650 300 milliamp battery, or 3000 milliamp battery, I'm sorry. These are the only batteries that you want to be using with these sabers. I think some vaping things use 18650, but you never want to use any of those. Use these batteries. They're trusted, they're safe to use. So when you're putting it in, you want to align the flat side with the spring. Spring side is your negative. You can see a little negative marked on the battery here. So you can pop that in first, press it down.
Java, this is your last chance. Free us or die.
So I did put on, I think it's K-Sith's V2 font on here. There's 3 different configurations that I did. One was Luke's duel with Vader. One of them is the barge scene, and then the other, I believe, is just kind of themed after the cave scene when he's like building his lightsaber. So I'll go ahead and turn it on. Top button is your activation. It's underneath the clamp card. You can see it right underneath there. Crystal lights up, and it's wired in line with the blade. So anything that the blade does, the pixel lighting this up will do as well. You do have smooth swing. Flash on clash. Blade lock. Blaster deflect. So that's pretty cool. So I'll go ahead and I'll put the hilt together a little bit, and then I'll show you how to put the blade in. Alright, so once you have your battery in and you're ready to put the blade in, you'll have it like this. Battery's in. You'll want to put the booster section on first. And that simply just threads on. And then you'll take your grenade section. The only thing that you'll want to watch out for is this PCB. This is kind of a 2-part component. So the PCB, like the plate side's right there, and it connects with pins inside the hilt. And this allows you to have that wireless connection. So these are basically the ends of some wires that are in the chassis, and they power up the NPXL connector up top. So when you're putting in, you want to be careful not to touch that to any metal parts. So what I like to do is you kind of just put it in an angle and put the lip of the chassis in first, and then you can just kind of tilt it in. It ensures that you don't touch that to anything. So when you do that, just take your time. Definitely no rush at all, right? So if you have your blade plug in, you can take that out. You got your Neopixel blade that I made right here. And what you'll want to do first is get to the retention screws in the emitter. And as you can see, you can't see them right now, but you can kind of see them inside the emitter right there. So to get to those, you'll want to unthread this emitter portion right here, and it is reverse threaded, meaning you'll have to turn it counterclockwise in order to unthread it. Or I'm sorry, clockwise to unthread it. It's backwards. So normally, obviously, this would be to tighten it, but it actually loosens. And that is actually opposite of the components of the hilt itself. So when you are putting it back on and you're going all the way down, if you start to tighten it, you'll start to twist the whole emitter piece, and you don't want to do that. So you just want to be careful of that. Make sure that the actual emitter itself is tight down, and you'll only want to be unthreading this portion. As you can see, this down here is not moving, nothing else is moving, and it's only this piece. So righty-loosey, you want to take it all the way off, and then underneath you can see, you know, here's the threads, and there's some retention screws. So there's the bigger ones towards the tip of the saber. Those are for your blade. The smaller ones that you see are for the NPXL connector in there. You don't need to ever touch those, so you know, you can just leave those alone, and you'll only need to worry about the bigger ones. So before you actually put the blade in the hilt, one good thing to do is to put the emitter on from the bottom side right here. That way when you put the blade in, you know, the emitter is already right there. If you don't do that, you'd have to start from the top and put it all the way down. So you want to do that, and then take your hilt, insert the blade, and it's a little bit of a tight fit, so what you can do is just gently kind of twist it back and forth, and then sometimes that happens when you put the blade in. So you'll actually, when I did it right now, I could actually hear the blade when it started to touch the pins. So you don't want to go any more than that. The blade is making contact with those pins. Those pins are somewhat fragile, so you don't want to jam it in there. You don't want to really twist on it while pushing down on it, because then you could be bending the pins and whatnot. So just put it in. You can kind of guess and check and turn on the saber to make sure you put it all the way in. So now that we know that it's working, you can take your Allen key, and the hilt didn't come with any because it's kind of custom pieces that you kind of put together. So I got you this little set that'll go with your saber. I believe it'll be the biggest size in the set. I'll confirm that and I'll let you know, but you will have the necessary Allen key in the box when you get your saber. So again, it's those top screws, and there's 3 total. There's holes for 4 of them, but you don't need all 3. Really 2 is enough, but 3 is, you know, just to be safe. So you want to tighten them down. You don't need to really torque on it, just, you know, nice and snug. And then when you're putting the emitter piece back on, one thing to be careful for is that when you start threading it back on, it might be a little bit tight because of the blade itself. But what you don't want to do is have it, you know, tight and you can't really get it on. It should go on fairly easily. If it's really tight, it means that you're getting caught up on the retention screws because they're backed out far enough to be in the way of the threads. So you do not want to try to force it down. If you see that it's a little tight, you know, make sure you back it back out. Kind of look at the screws, make sure they're all the way in. Maybe there's some gunk in the threads or something, you know, you'll just want to look at it and kind of try to see what's up, and then, you know, retry until it goes on relatively easily. You'll see how easily it goes on when I do it right now. And the reason why I warn you of that is because I actually jammed one of the emitters and I had to replace it, re-weather it with aluminum black, and repaint it with the Trooper Trent stencil. So I had to buy a whole new stencil just to do this one little bit. So you do not want to do that. Please learn from my mistake. See, this is how easily basically it'll go on. If it ain't going on that easy, you'll want to figure out what's up. So you'll just thread it on until it gets all the way down there. And there you go. It's all the way on. It's flush with the bottom of the emitter piece there. We can turn it on to check again. And it's good to go. So this first font, the fonts you had me put on there were some Luke V2 fonts. Kyberphonics Father, which is Darth Vader, and then I put on Kyberphonics Thunder God, which is Thor as well. So I'll go through those fonts really quick for you. Here's the Buddhist sound. So this font is kind of based on the cave scene when Luke turns on his hero hilt for the first time. So Smooth swing. Blaster block. Saber lock. And then quotes are going to be hold down ox and swing. So that's one of them. Sometimes they're quotes, sometimes they're sound effects. Let's see if I can get a quote to go.
I will not turn.
There you go. So there's a couple of those on there. The track is going to be that beeping sound that you heard for the boot sound as well. So there's that one, and then you can hold down the power button to switch to the next song. So with this one, it's just the same thing, but a little bit more background noise. Double click to turn it on and off. And then to go to the next font, you'll want to hold down the bottom switch, which is the auxiliary, until it says sound bank selected.
Sound bank selection.
So that's the current font you're on. And then you can press up or down to go to the next font.
His lightsaber. Yes. A Jedi's weapon.
So this is Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Some quotes for this one.
I'll never turn to the dark side. I will not fight you, Father. I will not turn. You failed, Your Highness.
So they're all based on that duel. And the track for this one is different. Let me turn this off. Super cool. No, I can't remember if there's another track on this one. No, okay. It's just that one sound. Or one song, sorry. So to go to the next font, hold auxiliary.
Sound bank selection.
His lightsaber.
I am Luke Skywalker.
This
Jedi
one's
Knight and friend to Captain Solo.
based on the barge scene, so it's got that separate track of that whole barge scene where he's about to jump in the Sarlacc pit and then does his thing. And then the next one, there are the Vader fonts, and I think they go in order of the movies. So that one was A New Hope, next one Empire Strikes Back, next one Return of the Jedi, next one actually Rogue One. So I'll show off the Rogue One font for a second.
You want me to put... Hold too easy.
Turn this off again. So with this one, you have a really cool track. I don't know if you've seen this before, but not that one. Oh, this must be the Return of the Jedi one, so they're not exactly in
Sound
order.
bank selection.
Oh, you know what?
I am Luke.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away.
So that's the New Hope one.
Sound bank selection.
The next one might be Rogue One.
He will join us or
No.
die, Master.
So I might go back and change that order because these are obviously out of order.
It is too late for me, son.
That one's Return of the Jedi.
Sound bank selection.
I expect you not to
There we
rest
go.
until you can assure the Emperor that Galen Erso has not compromised this weapon in any way.
Ah, that's so sick. Okay, so this one's the Rogue One. Yeah, that ignition is definitely Rogue One. Alright, so the track for this one, hallway scene. So the battle mode, to activate that one, turn that back on in a second. You'll want to press the blaster button and swing your saber. That way, every time after you use that, when you swing, it'll do like a blaster deflect sound. So I'll show you that real quick. It must not be turned on for this one, but I'll turn it on to make sure you have it. But again, you just press it and do a hard swing, and you'll be able to tell that every time you do another hard swing, it'll do a little blaster deflect. So that one's super cool. And then the last one
Sound bank selection.
You want me to put the hammer down?
is Thunder God.
I told you. You die for that.
So I had to make a cut in the video because I needed to change some settings around. You didn't have that battle mode on there, so I went and turned that on real quick. And then I changed the setting for changing the blade color and blade profile. So you now have what's called the spectrum mode turned on. So I'll show you that. I'll show you the blaster mode first. Go back to the
Sound
font.
bank selection.
So for this one, you press auxiliary and swing, and then every time you swing shortly after that, it'll do a blaster deflect. That little message that you heard is just telling you that you have low battery. So press the auxiliary and swing. So I had my hands off of the buttons, but I was still able to do some blaster deflects. And then when you pause for a little bit and then swing your saber, it goes back to normal. So now we'll go to that last Thor font.
Sound bank selection.
You want me to put the hammer down?
Much for that.
All right. So if you want to change the color, press the power and auxiliary at the same time. You'll hit spectrum, and when you twist the saber, it changes the color. Let's go with one that makes sense. So that makes sense for Thor's hammer. So you just press and hold the auxiliary and let go, and it'll select that. To do the blade profile, which is the effect on the blade, you'll want to do the same thing. You'll hold auxiliary, or you'll press power and aux at the same time, but you'll hold it down until it goes to blade profile.
Energy critical. Energy critical. Spectrum. Blade profile.
So you got a bunch of different effects on here. Rainbow. They call that like the Eye of Sauron. Like some flame blades. That one's like a flicker. This one kind of makes sense. There we go. There you go. At that angle, you can kind of see how it's all flickering and going crazy. Alright, there was another cut in the video because my phone ran out of space. And then it actually, I was refilming this part and it happened again because my phone crashed. But I was basically at the end of the demo. I was just showing off the Thor font and some of the features on there. So now I'll go over how to take the battery back out real quick. So you'll want to unscrew the grenade section off of it. Go ahead, lift straight off. And then what I like to do is kind of cup my hand and then bump my hand against the Graflex clamp right here. And then it'll pop the battery back out in my hand. And just be careful, it does pop out pretty quick. So I'll try to show you how that looks like. Just like that. So sometimes it lands right in your hand, you'll get used to it, but it is really easy to take out. And then you can just screw this back on. All right, so that is your finished Luke V2 using some MHS parts. If you have any other questions, Marco, you can always let me know. Just shoot me a message and I'll help you as best as I can. Hope you enjoy your saber. Can't wait for you to get this and to mess around with it. So thank you for watching.